Director, Kevin Haugen.
Well, thank you very much, and good afternoon. Welcome into today's Community Comment. Again, I am your host, Kevin Haugen. It is my pleasure to welcome into our Daily Dodge TV studio today members with the Beaver Unified School District. We are here to talk about the upcoming question that will appear on everyone in the district's ballot here on November 5th, looking to borrow $107 million to go towards a couple. We'll talk about more in detail. I'm not going to explain it because I'll do a terrible job. That's why we have. Thank you. That's why we have everyone here, and we'll get to the introductions in just a moment. But as a quick programming note, just want to highlight in our second segment today, we'll be talking with Jill Geisler, who is moderating the U.S. Senate debate this Friday between Tammy Baldwin and Eric Hovde. That's right around 1:30. So please stick with us here after our first segment of Community Comment. But again, in our first segment here, we're with members of the Beaver Dam Unified School District. And I want to give our guests an opportunity to introduce themselves and give their titles, what their role in the district is. And I'll start here right on my left with Joe. I know everybody's name, so I'll start with Joanne. But if you could introduce yourself and your title, please.
So I'm Joanne Tyjeski, and I'm currently the treasurer on the Board of Education.
Fantastic.
And Chad Prevey, currently the president for Board of Education.
Ryan Cashman, the Director of Business Services for the Beaver Dam Unified School District.
And we don't need to introduce the last guy. Everybody knows who that is.
Yeah, I don't know if that's good or bad. Mark DiStefano, Superintendent.
Fantastic. So again, I want to thank each four of our guests here on Community Comment today, and to talk about the referendum that'll be on the fall November ballot here, just a couple of weeks away. Before we dive in again to some of the specifics, I know, Ryan, that's why you're here to give us the numbers and all those fun details with the referendum. But I want to kind of go back to the beginning here and talk about how we got to this point, the discussions that took place, the studies, I'm sure, that went into it, and what ultimately led the district towards going to a referendum. And I will open up the floor to whoever wants to jump in on this question. I will hand that over to our guests here and sort of just take us back to the beginning and how we got to this point today.
Sure, you bet.
All right, you want me to go first?
Go ahead, Joanne.
So we began a process in about 2012 of doing facility studies, and that really was hiring an outside firm to come in, take a detailed look at our district, and then to provide us a report of what needed to be done and kind of the urgency of each of those projects. And out of that one, we really identified at that time the need for the high school, and through that process, the high school and some of the other renovations that happened at that time came. And then those studies last for about 5 years, and then we repeat them again and begin the process all over. So this is an ongoing process we've adopted. It's not just once or twice, but it really keeps us focused on the needs and the urgencies for the district, because there's always things you could get into that might be important but not urgent. So we really want to stay focused on that. So in 2018, we did a facility study, and it really identified our new and our most urgent needs. And in 2022, we did that again, and that identified really the needs for the middle school in Washington. We touched a lot of the other elementary schools in more thoroughly, done more renovations there, but with Washington and the middle school, while we had always been good stewards of those buildings and had been taking care of them, the needs had exceeded our ability to take care of those within our budget. So then we dug deeper, and I'll let somebody else talk about that step.
Oh, I mean, you nailed it. Most recently, the study that was done in 2022 really provided some key information for us, particularly like Joanne referenced, as it relates to the middle school and to Washington. And it informed us a little bit more, obviously, into what the types of costs we'd be looking at to continue to maintain something like, the middle school. And just to clarify, and I know people are probably relatively aware, we're looking to potentially replace the middle school, build a new one. But it told us that, Washington, for example, which was built in 1949, needed some renovations, needs some updates. There's some core heating things with the boiler systems, for example. There's electrical opportunities that need to be updated. So it informed us of that particular facility, and it informed us also of the middle school. And when you started to look at the dollar amounts and the potential impact associated with that from that facility study, you start to see that it's going to cost over $20 million just to maintain that building as is. And those are dollars that we don't have. We can't afford something like that on our own, and we'd have to go to our taxpayers just to essentially limp along the middle school into the foreseeable future. And it informed the prospect of, what if we looked at a larger scale renovation there, something similar to what we did, for example, at the high school. And now you're talking about over $70 million. So what it really did is inform us that we need to get some feedback. We need to kind of step further into this process, gather more information from our stakeholders. But at the end of the day, I think our board's been really good stewards of our finances, and the thought of probably asking our community to continue to pour money into a building that it really has far exceeded its life expectancy was going to be a challenge, and that kind of brought us to that community survey process and eventually where we are today.
I think I just want to add to that while we're talking about the facilities, the board is constantly educating ourselves, and the administrators are as well, about what is best for kids and what is the best learning environment. So while we've been maintaining this building, we've been unable to in any way change the footprint or change the learning experience for kids to update that to a more updated learning experience. And so while we were always talking about the facilities and the money needed there, we were also having a lot of discussions, both at the Washington school level and Wilson school level and the middle school, about what is the best learning experience for kids. And those conversations were going hand in hand, and then kind of helped us reach the decision where we're at now.
And now we'll dive into a bit more detail, some of the, details of some of the issues that are plaguing the middle school, and what we're looking to address also at Washington Elementary School, and district-wide safety improvements as well. But I want to take this time to focus a little bit in on some of the numbers when it comes to the referendum, and maybe that also can lead into the tax impacts if it is approved this November. So I believe my question should be directed to Ryan over here. So I will start with you, and then we can go wherever the conversation takes us. But Ryan, what are the details when it comes to the financial component of this referendum?
Sure. So the referendum, of the 107 million, 87 million of that is designated to build a new middle school. The 13 million is for improvements at Washington, and then 7 million would be for district-wide improvements that would touch virtually every school, every spot in the district. The 87 million for the middle school, we've received a couple questions on how we came up with that number. Initially, we have a construction manager, and they look at the square footage, what we're looking for in a new school, the student population, and they give us a range of what that could cost. And so that range, I believe, was 82 to 95 million to build a new middle school. And so we settled in at the 87 million on the lower end of that to get everything that we need for our students in that building. It's not a Cadillac. It's definitely not a Cadillac, but it will fulfill the needs of the district. Washington, same thing. There was a range. We did look at what it would cost to build a new elementary versus improving or renovating the old elementary school. That cost, it was not reasonable for us to do that. And then the district-wide improvements, 7 million is a number that we settled on to get what we think we need done right now. We could certainly do more. We can always do more, but that number will allow us to do a lot of really, really good things for kids, improve some ADA accessibility issues in the district, renovate or add on to all the playgrounds at the elementaries. So there's a lot of things that we can do with that $7 million.
And quickly on another note here, tying on to the financial component with this referendum, if it is approved, what do taxpayers here in the district, what will they see on their tax portion of their bill if this referendum is approved?
Sure. So initially we were projecting $1.20 per thousand, so it'd be $1.20 on the mill rate. And what that means is for every $100,000 of assessed value of your home or property, you would see a $120 increase on your taxes. We use that formula because it's easy to multiply 100,000. So if your home's worth 200, you'd be looking at a $240 impact per year. And that was the initial, we developed those figures back in March. Since then, a lot has changed, and that figure is probably closer to $1.08 conservatively. We based those figures on 5 to 5.5% interest rates back in March. Those interest rates are currently at like 4.25% to 4.75% conservatively. potentially could go down, but they could go up. So,
Yeah.
but I would feel very, very comfortable saying $1.08 right now. If things were as it is, it could be potentially even less.
Yeah, is this in terms of, obviously interest rates are so hard to pin down of where they're going to be when obviously these discussions have been going on for months, years. It's hard to forecast what could change, but is this a good time now with interest rates where they're at to get a referendum like this approved because they're at a point that, I'm no financial expert, so when you say around 4 to 5%, that sounds good, but I don't know if that is good or not. Could you expand on that, please?
I can touch on it a little bit, and then Ryan can correct me. He's good at that. I think the current forecast and reality is it's improving, right? I think for us it's about need, and we're in a position that this is a significant need and opportunity for a community as well. So now that we're below 5, definitely more much improved. I don't know if we're ever going to get into that 3% sweet spot, 3.5 again. Those were historically low, and some of us can think back to the late 80s and what interest rates looked like. The fact that we're even single digits for some people was probably impressive for a while, but certainly the fact that it's trending down is good. The other thing, and Ryan understands the dates and the timing of this a little bit better than anybody, but when you asked about tax impact, immediate tax impact relative to something like this is essentially little to none. In other words, as far as like this year's tax rolls per se, right? Because these projects take time, and then the district uses the authority given by the taxpayers to borrow, essentially, or get bonds over a period of time. So the dollar that we're referencing it's conservative in that we strongly feel like we're going to be able to deliver under what we're forecasting. We want to be able to do that to our taxpayers, for our taxpayers. And the other thing is that it's over time. So that first year, next year, people aren't going to see that. They wouldn't see that $1.20. They wouldn't see $1.08. They might see 30 some cents, and then that next year. So it takes time, and it has to do with the timing of the borrows. But all in, that's the total, and we're very confident we're going to deliver under that.
Is there a current idea of how long this referendum what the lifespan of this referendum will be, or is that something that will develop or change as the borrowing and bonding takes place?
Sure. So this particular referendum would be a 3 borrow, basically. So how that would work is, of the $107 million, we'd borrow that out 3 times. So the first time could be $30 million, the second time could be $50, and then we borrow the rest. And that can take place over a course of the 3 years to build it. The bond repayment would be 20 years for each bond. So it'd be 20 years after that last initial borrowing. And so, like Mark was saying, this year, the tax levy that the board will approve at the end of this month, that obviously this isn't going to be on it because it's prior to the vote, and we'll likely see a decrease in the mill rate for this year. And then next year, there likely wouldn't be much of an impact, or it certainly wouldn't be a $1.20 impact for 2025's levy, just because we wouldn't have borrowed the entire amount by that time. So.
Again, we're chatting with members of the Beaver Dam Unified School District, detailing the referendum question that will be on the fall ballot here on November 5th for those who live in the Beaver Dam Unified School District. I want to sort of dive into now some of the needs that will be addressed by this referendum, and we could start really with the biggest one of the biggest chunk of that money is going towards the middle school. And essentially, that'll be on a new piece of land, too. And maybe this is a good opportunity to talk about that land and why that was highlighted as a need, because when the purchase took place a couple years ago, and now this is taking place now to have a referendum to move the district, but to move the middle school, excuse me. But why is this such a need to have the middle school relocated from its current position?
Sure. You want me to do this? All right, I'll start. The middle school is located in a spot near our downtown that is landlocked. It has no room to grow. And already to find them a green space, they have to cross Spring Street. And if you've ever been at that intersection, it's a process and it takes time. They get them across, they get them over there, and they had their Phi Ed class and come back. Also, if you've been at the middle school, when they're letting out of school, you'll see that's where the buses are across Spring Street. So there's a lot of kids crossing that busy street, a lot of parents trying to pick their kids up. So safety is one of those issues on why we were looking to relocate and not build there. So I started.
Yeah, I mean, there really wouldn't be an option. I mean, safety in the current location, I know people have an affinity, and I agree it's conveniently centrally located in the city's boundary. But there really isn't anything else within that immediate area that would provide the space that we would need. And forecasting out, again, our board has been really great, and I think trying to make decisions that, yes, are good for today, but they're looking ahead, right? So we're trying to make decisions to set up our future generations for opportunities as well. So when the board made the decision to purchase the property, that property that was purchased, that 60 acres, was some of the last remaining appropriately sizable property that's within the 151 boundary. So on the inside of 151, that was available and potentially could be developed. Certainly, we're talking about the prospect of a new middle school right now, but there's enough green space to afford future generations the prospect to do other things, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, depending on what they're looking at. And that particular location is immediately adjacent to a subdivision, pedestrian access. It's right off of Judson and Lombardi Drive. It's adjacent to where Spring Street transitions to G. And we know that it's on the south edge of the city, but it's also centrally located in our district boundary. One of the things that's come up, and then people can tell me to stop talking, but one of the things that's come out about that prospective new land is, they'll say things like, well, there's no sidewalk there. And they're absolutely right. There isn't yet, because we haven't had the opportunity to put a school there. If and when the community supports this effort moving forward, the whole process goes through a city plan approval process, a state plan approval process, and nobody's going to let a school go up without having pedestrian access. And we already have slated opportunities for where sidewalks are going to come in off of Lombardi Avenue, also off of Spring Street. There's going to be multiple points where children can walk to that particular location. It's a clean slate in many respects, and those things will come through the planning approval and development process. And it's going to make it more convenient to walk to school for people on the south side of the city, perhaps, and for our students that would walk, and believe it or not, a lot of them get dropped off. But for the students that would walk on the north side, we're going to provide transportation. And we can afford to do that. It's in the budget. We already have multiple routes on the north side and the east side of our district boundary. So it might not be as cost prohibitive as even we would think in a worst case scenario, because we have buses coming into town, and Ryan can say they have plenty of room to stop and pick up other students. So we're really excited about the prospect. It's not there yet. It's hard, I think, for some people to envision, and we respect that. It can even be hard for us to envision, but we know that this could work. This could work really well, and this could marry really nicely too with the future of Beaver Dam, and where there's prospective development for residential. It's not on the north side. That's an industrial area. We know we might see some apartments or something like that come on there, but coming online from single-family residential, it appears that the east side and the south side of Beaver Dam is really a strategic place to be building such a resource.
And for the transportation piece of that, there's been a lot of questions on how will the students on the north side get to school. So we would by state law, we have to transport students that live outside 2 miles from the schools, but we would do that anyway. So we would have routes. We're looking at an additional, most likely 3 routes that would stop at strategic locations within the city, and those students that lived near those locations would walk. So they may walk anywhere from 1 to 3 blocks to those locations, and then get on that bus, and that bus would take them to school. And when I say routes, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're adding additional routes. That could be a rural route from the north side, or a rural route coming in from the east that then comes through the city, stops, picks up an additional 20 kids, and then comes in. So In that respect, it's not an additional cost. The only additional cost is when we truly add additional routes. So, and we figure worst case scenario, 3 to 4 of those.
When people ask is, why not just renovate the middle school, just, fix the issues that are at that building and keep the middle school there. It was one of the problems is that the land is difficult to do that on, and is the other one that the building is such at an age where it's difficult to make a renovation project happen. Again, I'll open the floor to whoever wants to dive into this one, but what are some of the pros and cons when it comes to renovating the middle school as an option?
Well, I think, one of the things we talked about was renovation cost versus cost of new. And when you look at the middle school based on its age and everything there that would need to be upgraded, you're looking at approximately $71 million in renovation costs, where you can build a brand new middle school at $87 million. So just from a cost difference from renovation to new, it just totally makes sense. But then the big thing there is you're putting a building on an existing plot of land that we already know is not in the best interest of kids. Plus, along with that is that we're going to use that land. You're renovating a school that's going to take longer process. You're going to try to do that in existing space. You're going to displace kids. Where when we go new at the location we're looking at, we can do it in a shorter time frame as well.
I want to move on here with the time that we have left here with the members of the Beaver Dam Unified School District to just highlight a little bit of Washington Elementary and some of the upgrades and facility changes that would happen at that elementary school if the referendum is approved.
So at Washington Elementary, the first thing that's going to need to happen is we're bringing over the kids from Wilson. And a number of those kids are already there, but we need to make more room to welcome all of them. So we need to add 3 kindergarten classes to welcome those kids in. So by adding the 3 new kindergarten classes that are then appropriately sized for that age group, we make room to spread out the other classes within the building. We also need to add more common spaces there for music, lunch, and art classes. And then that will really help this building last. It's served our district well. It's still a building in great shape, but it'll allow us that building to serve for a number of years yet, and will really help there. We'll also add a little more parking for staff and visitors at the school, and just freshen up the rest of the building to make it look more like a Prairie View than the school that was built in the 1950s.
And I think that's been pretty consistent with our consolidation efforts over the course of the last, 10 to 15 years. I mean, you look at Trenton, right, and the addition onto Prairie View. You look at South Beaver Dam and the addition onto Jefferson, and now we're looking at Wilson in a necessary addition that we're going to need on Washington. So.
Yeah, when it comes, obviously Washington Elementary School and the middle school have been prioritized as being issues that the district is focusing on here, at least with this current referendum. Beyond that, what does the district forecast for needs that would need to be addressed here down the road?
Yeah, I think what's exciting is that if we're able to take this step, and we really believe that this is the best next step that we can take as a district, we're setting up that future generation for the opportunity to have a lot of debt that would have fallen off, and be able to look at the prospect of probably building a new elementary school sometime in the 2040s. It's crazy we're saying 2040s, which has happened, but. And I think that's an exciting thing, and by that time, when the community is talking about that, by that time we're going to have had 2 elementary schools that are essentially 100 years old. So what I think is really neat is when we look at our stewardship of our facilities, we're really getting great life and use and trying to take care of these facilities as best we can, but. We'll have Washington and Jefferson and another 20 to 30 years are going to be around that 100-year mark, and then the community will make a decision as to whether or not they're interested in potentially replacing those. And by that time, from a debt standpoint, facilities related, they should have a lot of options. And then beyond that, we talk about the 50s, maybe into the 60s. Then they're probably going to be talking about a high school. But in order for the community to be able to have the flexibility to have those conversations and maintain competitive taxation, it's important that we're good stewards right now. So we don't kick the can and force these kind of roadblocks or, kind of these confluences where it's just such a ridiculous need. And if we look at our timeline, and I think our district has done this, we really try to take care of our stuff. We get the best use we can. We even hand it down. That's what the middle school has been, right? It's a handed down high school, and we continue to use that. But this really puts us in great shape for 20 some years. And I think that's a really exciting opportunity, particularly as we look forward to our future generations and giving them maximum flexibility to make decisions for kids and our community.
We are just about running out of time here in our first segment of community comment. With the minute or two that we do have left, I'll just position this question to Chad and Joanne. Chad, I'll start with you, and then Joanne, if you want to wrap us up here. But when people head to the polls on November 5th, why should they support or vote yes to this referendum question?
Well, I think the school board has really done a good job from a steward standpoint financially. You look at every other year we've done, or all the years we've done facility studies, we've tried to do whatever we could possibly do on our own. And you're going to see that as years following our individual facility studies. And then we get to a point where we just can't do it ourselves. And that's when we're asking for help. And that's a difference between a capital referendum and an operational referendum. Like, we're not asking for money to operate our school district, right? We're looking for some assistance to build another building, right? And that's a big difference.
Joanne, any final words to add on?
Yeah, I think along with the stewardship that Chad talked about, I really want to talk about what's best for kids. Having Washington be a 3-section school where teachers can collaborate and learn from each other, having a middle school where we can bring in agricultural classes, where we can have right-sized rooms for art, for the exploratories, as well as classroom space that allows them to just really learn in the way that kids learn now and not the way that kids learned 50 to 100 years ago. So I really am excited about the possibilities for kids, and I know that this community has a long-standing history of just really taking care of what needs to be taken care of, and this is what needs to be taken care of now.
Is there a place that people in the community can go to, a website with more information and facts and details about the referendum?
Yeah, so right on our website, www.bdusd.org, right on the front landing page, there's an opportunity to click right when you land there on more information on the referendum. And there's a variety of information. There's some informational videos. There's a variety of handouts. And then I would encourage people to call, reach out if they have any questions. They can get a hold of board members. That information's on the website. They can call the district office line at 885-7300. My direct extension is 1001. I'd love to get a call, and really we want people to be informed and understand that these needs are real. These opportunities are very, very real and hopefully exciting for people to consider. And we just want people to be informed. And I think this, in closing, if I could, what's been really nice about the facility informational sessions is we've gotten great questions, Kevin, and people have been very candid about bringing forward their concerns, et cetera. But really 95+% of people have really appreciated and at least respect the fact that they know that what we're doing is probably the right thing, and respecting the effort. Times feel a little different for some people right now. There's some unique energy out there, obviously, for a variety of reasons, but people respect it and realize that the needs are real. And we thank people for being honest and being respectful and participating in the process. And we're hopeful that they realize the need when they're in the polls.
Once again, want to thank our guests here on Community Comment. Again, joining us are members with the Beaver Dam Unified School District. With me, Joanne Tyjeski, Chad Prevey, Ryan Cashman, and Mark DiStefano. I want to thank them for joining me here on Community Comment in our first segment. Don't forget, in our second segment, we'll be joined with Jill Geisler. She is moderating the Wisconsin U.S. Senate race this Friday between Tammy Baldwin and Eric Hovde. So stay with us. More Community Comment is coming up next.
If you recently lost health coverage due to a life